Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching, and thanks as always to our producer of the program, Jeff Durall. We're at the Moss Thorns Gallery of Fort Hays State University's campus in Rarick Hall, visiting once again with Seth Kastle from the Department of Leadership Studies, and talking about the second installment of Seth's book. A children's book author who's received widespread national attention after his book, Why Is Dad So Mad?, was featured on NBC Nightly News earlier this year. Well, the second book, Why Is Mom So Mad?, is now available through major online retailer Amazon. Seth is a Fort Hays State University graduate, retired Army First Sergeant. He's currently teaching in the Department of Leadership Studies, primarily for Fort Hays State's partner institutions in China. So let's start in China, if we could, Seth, first of all. Tell me about the partnership in China and how you're working on that.
Okay, so as you said, I teach in the Department of Leadership Studies, and we have a very large cross-border education program with two different institutions in China, Shenyang Normal University and CS International University. And I work as an instructor of record, which means that I develop the content for the courses, and I do the grading, and I gauge the learning for the courses, and then I work with what's called a cooperating teacher in China, and they actually facilitate on a day-to-day basis the content that I develop. So it's a division of labor for a large partnership.
Now, is the actual instruction in China?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which means necessitating trips to China,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I've traveled to China 4 times now, and usually at the beginning of every fall semester. We travel as a large delegate of all the instructors of record for a few programs here at Fort Hays State, and we'll go for the first week of courses at one institution, and then we'll go to the other institution and teach there for usually the second week of courses.
Is the core leadership studies for Chinese students, Seth?
Well, there's Fort Hays has a number of programs over there. They have global business English and philosophy and leadership studies, and they also have a BBA program over there. So there's quite a few different degree choices for Chinese students.
Are you kind of managing overall all of those programs then?
No, I strictly teach in the leadership studies department.
Okay. Are you finding interest among Chinese students in that leadership studies program?
we have a very large following, a great student base in China.
Much like here at Fort Hays State, where leadership studies is very popular.
Absolutely.
Talk a little about the first book, if you would. I am glad to see, Seth, that there was such wide acceptance of Why Is Dad So Mad? Obviously, you filled a need.
Yeah, I think that, just as you said, the success of the book really speaks to the need that was out there for something like this. Why Is Dad So Mad is a book told about a military family in which the father struggles with post-traumatic stress disorder. It's nothing fancy. The thesis statement of the book is, Dad had some experiences that changed who he is, but no matter what, he still loves his children. And that's really what precipitated the need for the second book, Why Is Mom So Mad?
And the beauty of it, Seth, is that you have directed this to children on a level that children can understand and relate to, with the illustrations and with the text itself.
Yeah, I was really at the greatest point in my life to actually write a children's book, and my daughters are knocking on the door of 7 and 3. I mean, they're 6 and 2 right now.
Christmas is going to be wild.
It is. It absolutely is. But, so at this point, I've been reading children's books for about 6 years, and I've read a great deal of them. So I guess you could call the last 6 years of my life my research for writing the children's book.
How about those 3 and 7-year-olds? Are they critics? Are they receiving the dad's work favorably?
Yeah, they are. They've both been very supportive.
That's always good to have.
Yeah.
So then comes the second book, Why Is Mom So Mad? Obviously a need there too, Seth.
Yeah, asymmetrical warfare has really changed the way that we fight wars. And because of that, there are many, many women that are in combat roles that they didn't possibly used to be in, and especially when you're looking at the changes that have taken place just in the last month or so, that women are now, all combat jobs are open to women. I see that need just expanding. But So the way that we fought the last 14 years of war has placed many more women at risk, I guess you could say, for coming home with some additional baggage that possibly prior conflicts wouldn't have produced.
An interesting story. The book is co-written with your wife, Julia.
Yes. Yeah, Julia is actually also a combat veteran, and she was deployed in 2002 and then also in 03-04 with me.
Was she the inspiration, you think? Or the driving force to say, it's time to relate to the women?
Yeah, she was the one that really kind of clued me into this. So yeah, I would have to definitely give her credit. And she was all about helping me write the book. When it came time to put her name on the cover, she wasn't as excited about it. This isn't always something that's easy for people to talk about. I mean, I'll be honest, that's probably why someone hasn't done it before, is because it's not an easy thing just to come out and talk about and say, this is something I'm struggling with, especially in the military community.
Well, and you had your own journey to get to the point of, why is Dad so mad?
Absolutely. Several years worth. I came home in 2004 and I wrote Why Is Dad So Mad in 2014. So there's about a decade there to where that, with a lot of ups and a lot more downs, that took me to the point to write that book.
There is a great story of how you and Julia met.
Yeah. Julie and I were actually in the same unit in the Army, and we never knew each other. She was in a detachment in Wichita, and we didn't know each other till we deployed together in 2002. And so we met there. I was pretty disenchanted because I had been assigned her as a battle buddy, which I wasn't too happy with at the time. But they always say that if the Army wanted you to have a wife, they'd issue you one. But we were deployed together. We ended up in separate locations for most of that deployment, and then we actually deployed together again in 2003. And we spent a great deal of that time in separate locations also. But I actually proposed to her on top of a bunker in Iraq.
Oh my goodness!
So we just celebrated over 10 years of marriage.
And both of you were involved in some of those early operations in Kuwait, weren't you?
Yeah, we staged in Kuwait in late March of 2003, and my platoon went forward about a week before hers did. But I crossed the border 16 days after the first ground troops set foot in Iraq, and Julie's platoon was only about a week behind mine.
That's an amazing story about proposing on the top of a bunker. And I assume she said yes.
Yeah. Fortunately, she said yes. It's not the Eiffel Tower, but it worked for us.
Well, I doubt if there will be much of an anniversary return to the scene, probably.
Yeah, you're correct.
So how did the second book develop then? You say she wanted input, she gave you input on it, and obviously a need here again, Seth.
Yeah, the thesis statement of the second book is really the same as it is in the first book. We just use different metaphors and different examples that can more closely relate this to female combat veterans and, more importantly, mothers. And that's where my wife's input was extremely valuable.
And as far as the role of women in combat areas, as you mentioned just recently, they have been authorized for full combat roles now. Will this change family structure, you think? Will this change the way we approach battle situations?
That's a huge, complex question. And I'll steer clear of the military side. I think that it'll change families. Those combat jobs that men are typically in, they will usually spend a great deal more time in the field or away from home, and that's a father being gone is different than a mother from being gone, and so I think that it will have some. I would think it will have some deep, lasting effects on families.
But women in roles have also filled a very big niche in the leadership studies area that you're involved in, Seth, because of the decisions that have to be made and the leadership that has to be assumed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me about experiences shared. Is there a situation where you two have shared some of those experiences? Is it a kind of a separate compartment that you have?
We went through this journey together. We came home in 2004 and we moved into a trailer house because that's all we could afford at that magical time in life when you're young and struggling. And that's really where the journey started. We look back and we've both had our ups and we both had our downs. and we just, we work as our support network for each other, and that's really all you can do.
You know, that's the beauty of it, I think, is that you two sharing that same role, basically, that you've been able to offer that support to each other then.
Yeah, I have an incredibly supportive wife, and I hope she would say the same about me.
Now, second book available on Amazon.com, and tell me about the first book as far as the response. It's been incredible, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. The best part of all this is I've gotten thousands of emails, literally, from service members and more service members' families, thanking me for writing the book and saying what impact this has had on their family. One that always sticks out in my mind is a man emailed me who's a combat veteran, and he said, I read your book to my son tonight for the first time, and he said, that look your child gets the first time they understand something. It's like, my son got that look on his face tonight when I read that book. And so, I'm hearing firsthand how what I've done is impacting military families, and that's the end game. That's what I want.
That's really the core of what your project is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And the same for women, I would assume, as well.
Absolutely.
So that there are, again, illustrations, beautiful illustrations that you've incorporated with a young lady from the Fort Hays State Art Department.
Yeah, Carissa Gonzalez-Othon is my illustrator for both the first book and the second book, and she's absolutely a very, very gifted illustrator, as you can see by the quality of work in both books. And, Kastle Books is actually the publishing company that I started. It's what the second book is published under, is working on developing a partnership right now with the Art and Design Department of Fort Hays State to help students that want to illustrate books kind of work as an incubator for illustrators. And through that, Carissa is now working on another book with another author here in Kansas, Kyle Carlin, who's a veteran also. He's a child psychologist, has written a children's book on anger management kit for children. And Carissa is actually going to be illustrating that book for him.
And we'd love to talk to him at some point too, once this is in development stage. But Chris really did add a lot. And to be honest, Seth, you have impacted her career in a huge way. I mean, exposing her to a much larger audience than she might have had otherwise.
That's the hope. She'll be able to graduate and say, she has 2 published books that have a great deal of people have probably heard of, and the quality of her work is on a national stage, which yes, the hope there is that I've impacted her career, and that's kind of the impetus for the partnership with the Art and Design Department, is to have that same impact on future students' careers.
Was the idea for the Bears, was that Chris's?
The Lions, actually, that was
or
Chris,
the Lions,
yes,
rather.
Was Chris's idea. We had the original meeting where I told her, I gave her just some broad criteria of what I was looking at. I wanted the characters in the stories to be animals. I didn't want them to be associated with any race of people, because service members, we're not all black or white or purple or whatever.
They cover all spectrums.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So the kind of the inspiration for that is, if you remember the Mercer Mayer books, Little Critter. That's just a kid and his parents, and that's kind of what I wanted this book to be. So I told her I wanted animals and I wanted something strong. That's maybe eagles or something. And she sent me an original character ideation of this family of lions, and I loved it. And that's the family that you see in the books now.
Well, congratulations on the official publication of the second book, Why Is Mom So Mad? We'll look for more great things from Kastle Publications.
Great.
Thanks very much to Seth Kastle from the Department of Leadership Studies at Fort Hays State University, our community connection.